Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I'm here with Dr. Sharon. Welcome, Dr. Sharon. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and it's a pleasure to see you once again, Dr. Pontea.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to hear about the talk that you're going to be giving today on synchronicity. And I know a lot of people are interested to know about that topic. So could you please start wherever you like?
Okay, I'll begin by talking a little bit about Carl Jung, who really made synchronicity a realization for many people. He named it. He was sitting in his office with a client, and there'd been something about a dream about a scarab or something. He was saying something, and immediately a beetle that had the similar appearance to a scarab landed on the window at the exact same time, verifying his experience and what he was saying. I can start by giving a couple of incidents that have happened in my own life that were major synchronicities. One was when I was in a writing class in 1990. I was in a 9-month program. It was Matthew Fox's Institute for Culture and Creation Spirituality. And you lived there for 9 months and you had like incredible instructors and classes, and it was a wonderful experience. And it was overlooking the Oakland Bay Bridge and the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. So you were high up in the mountains. And it was January and October 17th, 5:05 p.m., 1989. I was in the dormitory taking a rest. It was also my birthday, and I was taking a rest after class, and there was a knock on the door. And as my roommate, who was from Los Angeles and I was from San Diego, and she opened the door, there stood a nun from Brazil holding a balloon saying happy birthday as the earthquake started. I've never quite understood that particular synchronicity other than some life-shaking stuff, but it was pretty bad because only about a mile from us, a freeway off-ramp went down, and it was like I said, it was 5:05 p.m. So we're talking work traffic. The Oakland Bay Bridge went down and everything. So it was just really serious, and I've always wondered what was the synchronicity in that, you know?
Yes.
But then I go to January a couple of months later, and I'm in this writing class, and we're to go out on campus and we're to, look for a bark, a rock, a tree, or something like that, and write as though we're that object. And I really couldn't get into it. And I said, no, I want to talk or write as though I'm the earth goddess herself. So I always went on a sunrise walk in a nearby redwood forest. And so I decided that I would go on it the next morning, then come back to my dorm room and just let the words come through me so that I had the connection by going in the walk through nature in the redwood forest. So I'm sitting there in my dorm room and here's the words that come. You walk upon my paths and acknowledge my beauty, but you do not know my power, the power to push forth mountain peaks and open valleys for oceans to fill. With the word fill, an earthquake started. And it was not as destructive, in fact, was not destructive at all. And it turned out the epicenter was there. And so it always spoke to me about the feminine, and I was really beginning my work in the feminine at that point. I was not published, but my school papers, master level, were all about the joining of mind and body, masculine and feminine, the need for this integration, and all of that. So in this statement, what was the synchronicity in that? It was about the feminine and about earth changing in the feminine because earthquakes are about transformation and and at the same time the words are very significant. The you don't know my power because everybody's looking at the feminine as beautiful, graceful, blah blah blah, and they're not dealing with issues of power.
Mm-hmm.
And we're putting that all on yang, the
Mm-hmm.
masculine, right? And so, but the power to push forth mountain peaks and open valleys for for oceans to fill. That's like an amazing statement. And I processed it for a couple of years and realizing that it was really a message to the feminine, not just myself, but to females, which now has become more prevalent the last couple of years. The idea of that women need both yin and yang, power and beauty, and that we can't just be all this sugar and spice and everything nice, like that old children's poem went. Especially now, more than ever,
Oh yeah.
women's power is really significant. So that was a very significant piece of synchronicity. Okay.
Yeah.
I've had many acts of synchronicity in my life. I would say my whole life is a journey into the underworld in one way or another. And that was an example. It's like, boom, the earth is shaking, things are opening. And I can go back to one of the more prevalent demonstrations of synchronicity and how it can act that occurred after my daughter had died in a car accident in 1978. She was 18 years old. And a couple of months later, now I was a single mother raising three children, obviously didn't have a lot of money. Cars were really important, used cars working well. This was 1978 or 79, actually, don't remember, to tell you the truth. And so I see this car for sale that's, if you can imagine how much things have changed. It was selling a 2-year-old car for $1,650. Can you imagine that now? No way, Jose. And the only reason this 2-year-old car was so inexpensive was because it had 99,000 miles on it. And it was a Datsun, an Asian made car. So I had a little bit of confidence in it. But also, I had this intuition that it was coming somehow through my daughter and to trust it. The 99,000 miles were a blessing in disguise. So I trusted that and I drove the car for almost 6 years. And then there was a little smoke underneath. I was up on a mountain trip for the weekend, taking my young son up there at Palomar Mountain. And I noticed a little smoking underneath the car, when I got out of it after driving up. And it's like, oh. So coming down on Sunday, I stop in the gas station. I make sure it's full of oil, and I'm driving through a main road in Escondido, California, when a hit and run driver hits another car. The car skids around into me. I skid around into a curb and jump out of the car unhurt, but realizing that it meant the car was going to be replaced by insurance. And so this was another blessing in disguise. But then I looked up around me, and the curb that I had skidded into was where her memorial services were held. And then 1 month later, yes, I get the new car. I'm also introduced to a chiropractor. And so I began being introduced into holistic health and all of that kind of stuff. So this was all very significant. And then about a month later, I get this phone call from the insurance company that I have a compensation check coming. And the compensation check is 1650, the amount I'd originally paid for the car. All of that was, this is how synchronicity, when it's right on, it confirms something that's happening in this dimension. It's like if you say power from the inner, non-local, synchronistic event connects with some events right in this plane. So that was, I think, I would have been in my late 30s then. And I had her very young. And so that was a very strong first example of synchronicity. Yes, I'd had some smaller ones before that, but this one was very big, as was the earthquake one, again, very big. And so I've always looked at synchronicity. In the last year and a half, I would say the biggest one was when I got the guidance to move here. And when I was sitting there at my computer in Silver City, New Mexico, when energy went through me with the words that I was to move to Cholula And it had always been planned that I was to move to Cholula. When things are coming from another plane, they're translated into the language you speak. So
Mhm.
you automatically get the message. So, because of previous experiences I'd had here at the volcanoes in 1980, I knew to trust this. And I moved to, I began selling things and deciding what I'd keep and drove all the way from Silver City, New Mexico to here in Cholula, which is 2 hours southeast of Mexico City. Well, within a very short time, all kinds of things start going wrong. First, I lost all my credit cards, my ATM card to get money, but I had people help me. And most of my when I make a payment, I'm making it online anyway, so everything could be handled through the internet. I was able to survive it. But then that's just a couple of weeks before I move into here. And I'm sitting in my office right now, and I was told when I was moving in that they would be working on the walls because moisture gets inside the walls here from under the ground. And would that bother me? No. Well, it turned out to be the entire place. So I could not set up home. And although I'd emptied out my car with everything I could fill it with to bring, all that sat in the center of the living room, a good footstool because I'd at least bought this and a bed as I was moving in. Okay, so here comes another act of synchronicity. I'd had those three dreams, which were going to tell spiritual destiny coming up, work I'd be doing. Um, and one had occurred on the solstice, winter solstice. The second occurred on the first of the year, 124. And the third, like within a week after that. By then, I'm totally settled in here. I moved in on January 3rd. And I've got a bed, but the drillers have come and they are drilling up all the walls. And so I'm sitting outside on my precious little chair with my wireless computer, and a neighbor comes down. So this is how I get to meet all the neighbors. And we're all good friends. The neighbor tells me, you can't sleep in the house for a couple of nights with all that powder, all that stuff that's coming out of the walls, as they're drilling. I have an extra room. Come upstairs and sleep in my place. So that night, she hands me a bathrobe and a blanket so that we can sit on the couch, those long couches, and watch a TV program. What does she turn on but a program from Turkey, which many might be familiar with, in English called Another Self, in Spanish Mi Otro Yo, and it's about ancestor work and built around the whole thing of constellation therapy, family constellation therapy.
Wow.
And this is after I'd had these three dreams. So now let me go back to dream number one. Dream number one on the solstice is I'm going to be given 7 steps that will have to do with helping to guide people, and I'd say myself included, through all these changes that are coming and happening. Because we really don't know how to go through this yet, you know?
Yeah.
But as I'm leaving, I'm just told I'm going to be receiving this information. It's not given to me. And as I'm leaving, I'm told I need to be weighed, your weight. And
Mhm.
I think to myself, well, I've been eating in the dream. I'm thinking to myself, well, I've been eating a lot of green enchiladas since I moved here. But that's shortly after awakening, I realized, oh, that's from the collective unconscious, back to Jung here. And that's the Egyptian myth of having your heart weighed against a feather in order to pass into the underworld. Dream number two occurs. And that's on a week later on January 1st. And that one is some guy comes skidding up in the car, jumps out with an AR-15 and shoots up in the trees at a butterfly. And he's come to apply for a teaching job of young children. And I'm thinking to myself in the dream, I don't think so. And I wake up, and within a short time, I get it that, oh, that's the first step. The first step is don't expect that the changes to come, like a butterfly represents
Or change.
transformation, right, are going to come in the ways that we have previously imagined.
Mhm.
Boom, there it is. Was what helped me to later accept, since the election, all the things have been happening and coming that, okay, it's happening for a reason. It's a destruction that eventually brings some kind of creativity, creative new thing. And certainly we've needed a major shift, but we would expect it to come in a nicer, more pleasant way than what looks like the loss of almost everything we've known and lived by. So having to do with that, so that dream helped me with that a whole lot. And then dream number three comes within a few days or less than a week. And this is where that TV program that my friend's going to introduce me to just a couple of days later or less,
Mhm.
um, my mother has come and she's taken my two younger daughters, and she had actually been a very bad influence. She'd tell them lies about me. She was very, very unhealthy. This was definitely a dark mother.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and so in the dream, I'm getting that and I'm feeling some of those feelings that are old feelings. And then I'm sitting there and there's a young boy in my lap and we're both looking down. And the theme in the dream is we can't find the feather. And then I wake up. And there it is again, the weighing the heart. We've got an issue with mom here. The
Mhm.
weighing of the heart against a feather. It's real clearly said it's mom,
Mhm.
old issues that I need to deal with. And then my new friend, invites me and turns on that program on family constellation therapy, and there you go. The journey into the underworld. So those are examples of the power of synchronicity and how they guide in our lives. So I'd like to open it up too to what's been sparked in you to ask questions about or make comments on, because that's the biggest experiences that come to mind in terms of looking at this whole thing of transformation, synchronicity that aligns with transformation, and also the journey into the underworld. Along that, I'll say one more thing though. Thanks to my friend introducing me to another self, and I came downstairs and got my own TV, and Netflix had it showing up, so I started watching it again, and it kept showing this other show that also came from Netflix Turkey, which was called The Gift.
Mhm.
And episode 5 in season 1, a TA who's gone to Göbekli Tepe, the oldest civilization at this point that's been uncovered and known 11,000 years ago. She goes to Göbekli Tepe, goes down some side path, enters cave opening, and a rock slide falls, and she's stuck inside. And the goddess is going to appear to her, and she's going to tell her, "Go deeper. You can't do this with your mind alone." And so it's a whole thing about the journey in the underworld. And I won't say much more because I highly recommend this program, all 24 episodes. And so again, I was getting all of that, one synchronicity leading to another in terms of guidance.
Mhm.
I believe that these kind of things are happening all the time, non-local events that coincide with our lives in this here and now, but that we don't always see them.
Mhm.
So that is the stories I wanted to share in terms of where I am with synchronicity right now. And I'm very curious what's come up for you or questions you might have.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like, do you feel like the guidance is coming from like the soul of the universe, our guides? Like, could the synchronicity, where would be like where it's coming from? Like, what do you sense as guiding
I
it?
know that I have some very strong guides,
Mhm.
but when the synchronicity comes like that,
Mhm.
it's like the dreams is something, okay, I'm receiving direct guidance. Where
Mhm.
it's coming from, I don't know.
Mhm.
I know when I was talked to, that's a definite. presence, higher presence that is a guide that's speaking and giving directions. For instance, in 1980, when I went to those volcanoes the first time, two rays of, as we're coming around the corner, the
Mhm.
curve toward the volcano, almost at the 10,000 foot level. And by the way, they're right up that way, the
Oh, that's
volcanoes.
cool.
I'm in between the Great Pyramid, the largest pyramid in the world, and which is based to have a solstice going at Popocatépetl in the legend The Male,
Mhm.
and in the that's the winter summer solstice, and the winter solstice at Ixtasíhuatl. It has the sunset right at that point from the volcano. So that's a form of synchronicity in itself when these volcanoes are set up with certain kind of connections to either a star, such in Göbekli Tepe, it's aligned to Sirius,
Mhm.
and then you've got here aligned to these two volcanoes, the
Yeah.
winter and the summer solstice. Those are a different form of synchronicity. But anyway, so I've been invited to go on a 10-day trip to Mexico. And as a single mother, a person still, working through many childhood issues, going on a 10-day trip in Mexico was a big deal. And I only had one child at home at that point in time, Raphael, and his babysitter said she'd take him. And so off I went with my friends. I said there were only two places I wanted to go to, the Basilica, the Shrine of Guadalupe, which I've had a lot of guidance from that place, and the volcanoes, Popocatépetl and Ixtasíhuatl. Apparently, I'd remembered something from grammar school, which seems odd. And so, anyway, so as we're at that almost 10,000 level and we're coming around the curve, two rays of light hit my one brow chakra and the other the heart. With, we are aware that you have arrived.
Oh,
That's a definite coming from a higher being in another dimension.
yes.
Okay. And then I get out of the car. By then, I'm kind of like, I think I'm taken over in some ways. I separate from my friends, and I am shown an image of myself as a young Indian girl from
Mhm.
the area. And I'm told that was a seed life that you would return at this time. And that was it.
Mhm.
Then I came back in 2000. I came back many times with never any real knowledge. It's the only thing was I could think, well, it's about male and female.
Mhm.
It has a Romeo and Juliet kind of theme to it.
Mhm.
And something to do with the work I've been doing too on the awakening of the feminine. She is always known as the sleeping dormant volcano, the
Mhm.
sleeping maiden, okay?
Mhm.
And so that was very significant. I came back, I never got any more information. And then in 2013, I was coming from Peru and I was going to visit a friend in San Miguel de Allende. And I made my airline ticket to not go back to Costa Rica, but to stop in Mexico City first. The minute I'd done it, I realized I was really going up to the volcanoes before I went to visit her. And
Mhm.
so I headed for the volcanoes. And at that point in time, I had another step of realization was I stood out there at sunrise and I could feel that there was a city above me in the air. So I didn't have the language for it at that time. In 2013, we've really changed a whole lot. We weren't using terms like portals and other dimensions. We talked about other planes and what have you, but we didn't really, it wasn't so common to use things like from another dimension. So I didn't really have the words other than from another city. Since then, I've read a very big paper from some Harvard researchers on all the various kinds of lives we share this planet with. And I'm not talking about insects, animals, and humans. I'm talking about, ETs of various types, underground, in the water, above, on land, in human form, you name it. Really, really interesting article and pretty brave to be put out by Harvard University professors and some other university professor. Very, very astute paper. And so in page 6, I think it was, somebody notes Popocatépetl, they're giving a source, is a portal. So
Mhm.
there again, you've got a confirmation of small synchronicity of sorts to my own understanding, you
Exactly.
know. So, and then so obviously, when sitting at the computer summer of 2023, and that energy comes through and says you're to move to Cholula, and it was always planned that you were to move to Cholula, it was like, oh, okay. There
Mhm.
was too much history to know that it was really significant. And then I realized when I had all of those things, those trials, because there was even another one, I found out my car was actually illegal. It'd only been legal for 1 month. And I had a hard time sleeping that night trying to figure out what is my plan going to be. And it was the only one thing, get the car out of the country as quick as you can. So I drove across the to Plymouth, Mexico at the border in 2 days, 2 nights, one night, 2 days. Yeah. And had a few things done to fix it up, crossed the border, regained my insurance, regained my uh, getting it registered in New Mexico because I hadn't bothered because I'd taken it into Mexico, right?
Mhm.
And got all that done, put it up on Facebook and sold it overnight.
Wow. But it seems
So
like
that
they were
all
trying to get you to be in a hurry, like to kind of go there fast, right?
Yeah, and so that Mexico didn't take the car away from me.
Mhm.
So anyway, it was very handy for moving me here. And so all of those things all came together, and here I am. Now I have met people that know the things that I know, that are Mexicans here, a particular group. That took me a while. And actually, I'd met them in a couple of months after moving here, but didn't realize it till because I would go to this little festival thing where they sell all kinds of, organic products and local products and things that occurs whenever there's a religious holiday, and there are many here. And there was one that had attracted me. And so I would go back there and buy something. And then I learned sometimes if they had a big enough space, they gave massages for a very small amount of money. And so one time, then after that, I start talking to the guy and I tell him my story. He writes down something for me on a paper to remember this, Teoton, and then which is a special place underneath the volcano Ixtaccíhuatl. And then he exchanges WhatsApp, and then he introduces me to Tonio. Tonio, who'd been writing a book on ancient Mexico and how the Mexicans had lost their power and the coming of the goddess.
Oh, wow. Chills. Chill.
Right, right, right. So we've been communicating quite a bit. And so that's more, you say, like an ongoing synchronistic event, you know?
But I love that. It's like all the little things that led you there, and you're very clear with it. It's not like you're taking all the numbers you see or all the symbols you see. It seems like you're knowing this is specifically a message, because sometimes the synchronicity can get overwhelming. Like you're seeing these numbers, you're having these dreams, like I have people come talk to me and I'm like, well, that I don't think that's a synchronicity. That just was a coincidence. But when it's
Mhm,
exact, you're saying it's kind of like the light hit you right when you walked in, right? Or like your
mhm.
house had a challenge, so then this lady invited you in and gave you a blanket, which to me feels like the Divine Mother wrapping the blanket around you. And since you have that connection with,
Right. And then introducing me to that program.
yes, and then introduce you to the program, and then this guy writing a book on the topic you've been researching your whole life, you know,
Yeah, right, right. So he
empowerment.
thinks I'm aligned with all that, and that's why I'm here.
Exactly.
So he's been introducing me to different people, although I'm headed off to Turkey and Greece and all of that. But when I come back at the end of April, beginning of May, then that connection will start again.
That's
Yeah, I think, I was reading a book on something about on becoming psychic or how to be psychic or something like that. Somebody had recommended it, so I got it. It was okay. It was a whole lot on research and more research and very scientific, trying to prove yourself to the guys that control the scenes. And that kind of stuff bores me because I think people are wasting their time. But anyway, so there were parts of the book that were good, and I could care less whether what part of the brain became darker or a different color when certain things were activated. But anyway, I was reading it, and there was a point I wanted to make. What was that? Oh, he lists at one point all the different clairs, like clairsentient, clairaudience, voyant, all of that. There's also a clair that I didn't memorize it, but it's about that sense of you don't even question it.
all clear cognizance,
Is that what it's called?
right?
Okay,
So like when you
claircognizant.
just know things
That
or
you
something,
know.
clear
Right.
cognizance.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're all related to that.
So with
Yeah, a
synchronicity,
little
you're
bit of
like,
clairaudience there with the message where it comes through and when I'm talked to by those beings, but also there's this claircognizance, which is knowing. You don't question it.
I know this is a message right now, like the other day I was checking out a facility for dad and then I saw a crow there and I was like, okay, a crow here, good omen. But then I saw another crow fighting it. So then I knew the ancestors were telling me this might not be the right place. If the crows
Mhm.
start fighting, I know they're telling me that might have some challenges, for example. So I kind of like watch, like if a certain bird is guiding me, I watch what it's telling me, like what it's doing. Versus
Mhm.
before, I would just see a crow. I'd be like, oh, that's good luck. Let's go. And now I'm like, no, what's the crow doing? How many numbers are they? Which branches is sitting on? You know?
And I
So,
think nowadays, with the way truth and knowing what truth is changing and so questionable on information, it's great to get like that backup piece, like you described.
mhm, exactly. And I do feel the whole collective right now is being guided by synchronicity, right? So it's just about are they able to decipher it? Or the people that are awake, right? Or they're spiritual. I don't know what the word we should use because you know what I
It's
mean?
hard to know because we don't really have a clear sense of direction. We're getting little pieces of it,
Mhm.
and we're entering a time of not knowing because most of our knowing is based on old patterns and everything
Yes.
that's breaking up,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. And it's like we're kind of like in the unknown zone. Like we've never been here before in this time, in this universe, and the level of evil that we're dealing with right now.
Mhm.
I don't think we've ever dealt with this kind of evil before.
Mm.
I think it's the worst of
Yeah,
worst, right?
yeah,
Would you agree?
yeah.
Yeah.
We've always heard about this.
Mm,
Kind of like the battle of good and bad, battle of good and evil. And then there's the stuff about integrating the shadow, but it's something different. It's like, I've asked myself through the decades, as you probably have too, are there malevolent forces?
yeah. Yeah. And we know there are. Like I feel like there definitely are. There's ET malevolent forces like the reptilians. And then there is like the AI, which seems to be connected to the ET malevolent forces. Like it feeds on that. And then there is, and then there's demons, obviously. So, and then others.
Things that just are against evolution. I know my first teacher used to talk about something called devolution,
Mm,
that there were forces that moved against evolution.
mhm,
That's really what we're seeing now.
exactly. Like they're trying to kind of keep the collective down, like in fear. They're starting wars in California. They started like 50 fires last month. I mean, that
Yeah, that
could
was really
happen.
wild, wasn't it?
Right?
That was
I was just
really
looking at the
wild.
map and I'm like, it just more keeps popping up. And I felt like it was evils. I heard evil say like, and so it begins. And I was kind of like, wow, they're hitting us really hard with
Hmm.
their first thing. And I knew they were kind of like trying to put a scare in the collective to the light workers. Like, what are you guys gonna do now? But then I have one friend that was a firefighter and he was fighting all of them and he was like texting us in a group and we were trying to send energy. And he said 50% of the fires went down when we were sending energy. So
Hmm.
I kind of was thinking like everything they do, as long as we kind of do something to help, some of us on the ground, some of us spiritually, it's going to be obviously a long-term battle. Like we're in a really long-term
Right.
battle with evil. And evil is very smart and it's kind of taken over a lot of the power positions right now in the world, right?
And people aren't very smart a lot of times. They don't want to think. They don't want to use discernment and measure things, or they want to stay in some state of ignorance or some new agey bliss,
Hmm.
and this is a real challenge for everybody. Pay attention. Or then the people that just watch television and veg out. I
Hmm.
know when I was living in Costa Rica, my massage therapist used to, look at my age. I was in my 70s then. And she'd say, I was out there traveling around and doing all kinds of things. And she would say that most people in Costa Rica the women would be thinking that, oh, they're old, they're done for, and they're just watching TV and maybe being a nice grandma or something like that. And that's it. They're not out there doing things to contribute to the world and be awake and all that's possible. I don't know if you heard Jane Fonda's speech.
Hmm.
That was really quite remarkable. for her Lifetime Achievement Award 2 weeks ago. But, here she is, what's she, 87? And she's out there saying, "No, I'm not. My life is not over. Needed more than ever. We're all needed because we have no idea what's coming."
Exactly.
She was
Exactly.
like right out there. She could see. She's fought for humanity her whole life and has never been afraid, not to be honest.
Yeah, I love her. I love her. And I love that she always says whatever she wants and she doesn't
Yes,
filter.
yes,
And she's adorable. Like I just love her spunk, and she's a
yeah. Yeah,
badass.
she's willing to go to jail for what she believes, like you name it. So
Yeah.
she's vital. And I'll tell you, the faces in the SAG Awards, I don't know what the SAG stands for, but it's some kind of Hollywood thing of judging. And it's also a union. And she was talking about unity and the importance of unity. And for the Actors Guild, which is what SAG is, that they were supported by this and they had to remember this unity and all the ways, and I've been getting that too. The way I have different groups that I connect with, it's like connect with them all. And
Exactly.
then it was just, I think, a week later or less that Kendrick Kendrick Lamar
Hmm.
did that shift in the wording of some of his songs that had just won a Grammy and the whole bit, and did a whole major political thing in the halftime show.
Yeah.
Millions and millions of people all over the world. It has had more attention than any halftime show. So he was able to create unity with just this little dance step that he does in this one thing.
Exactly. And he's calling out the pedophiles, like he
He's
talks about
called
the
that out.
evil symbol. I love the lyrics of that song. Every time it comes on, I just start dancing because I'm
Yeah, it's just really amazing. And especially with where he starts with because I looked up a lot. I was very interested in the
yeah,
influence. It wasn't just the catchy tune and the great little dance step that we could all do because it's not this complicated
the
stuff of like, oh
pedophiles.
my God, but something that everybody can do, and you saw people all over the planets of all ages doing it.
That's amazing.
But he starts it out with 40 acres and a mule. Well, that is the story. He changed the words. What's the name of that song anyway? He won the
Not
Grammy.
like us. They're
Not Like Us.
like
He
us.
opens it up. That's why what's his name, the actor who's playing Uncle
Samuel
Sam,
L.
Samuel Jackson,
Samuel
Samuel
Jackson.
Jackson says, now that's just right. He's talking about the one where they just had the
Hmm.
girl playing and people walking around and marching, and he's saying that's what the people want, nice, smooth. And then he hears the music starting to come in, Not Like Us, and he
Oh,
goes, oh no. And he walks away, and that's when it starts out, and the girls are saying, oh no. And then he's going 40 acres and a mule, because that was the promise from the government that would be given to the freed slaves.
oh,
Each
I didn't know.
one would receive 40 acres and a mule. And then the politics started changing, and that never happened.
Oh, wow. Wow. I just got chills. I love that he's calling them out. And you're right. It's like the song and the way he did it is what created unity. So I was like, I was looking at that. I'm like, how is he creating unity through like a rap song? And but he did,
He
and
did,
people like
big
dancing.
time.
And everybody knows about the pedophiles kidnapping children now. So he said that. He called the singer out, like, oh, you're gonna
Right,
be with a
right.
minor. And people said that everybody at the stadium said minor at the same time.
Wow. And then at the same time, he's hitting big on the very beginning of that, before he goes into the stuff with Drake and pedophilia. He's talking about the government and the racial stuff. And he also goes into God and the Bible and the way that that's misused.
Mhm.
I would like to see the change written. You can see it on some of the short little videos. If you go into YouTube, sometimes it has the short versions. They have the words right under it as he's singing them. That's how I learned some of it. Plus, listening to a talk where the revelations on what all was coming through him in that entire, what was it, 17-minute performance?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like that's how I was like,
Right,
okay,
right,
God is working through people. Like that's why I know
right.
there is a force that's helping us. Like you said, like we're not gonna know how it's gonna be, but he's just kind of dropping little bombs everywhere. And last night I was guided to watch this movie called Fantastic Beasts, like about Dumbledore. So
Oh,
before
that was a fun
Dumbledore ever
movie years
became the
ago.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Remember, like when he was younger and they were going to
Right,
elect
right.
him. And I just felt God telling me there's a lot of clues in this movie. I want you to watch it. And Dumbledore says it. Dumbledore says there is a plan, but nobody knows all the plan because the evil people can read minds. So God has put a little bit of plan in everybody's mind because if one person had it, evil would know what the plan was. But
Oh,
God,
that's a really great comment, isn't it? I've seen this
right?
years ago when it came out, so I hadn't heard that. That's very fitting for right now, too. It goes along with some of the things I was saying,
Exactly.
about we don't really know. And because this is a creative process of how we're going to go down and come up.
Exactly.
Truly, it's all of humanity going into the underworld. I know there's one talk by Richard Tarnas
Mhm.
on third eye drops. I don't know if you're familiar with third eye drops. It's a YouTube station that's very good.
You were
Uh,
telling me about it. Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Phil Phillips.
Yes.
And he gets in some pretty deep conversations, a lot of Jungian stuff too. But he was interviewing Richard Tarnas, who was the director of Esalen for many decades and a big astrologer. And about a minute into an hour into that video, Richard Tarnas says humanity's headed for a near-death experience. And he also adds, and many will die.
Yeah, I feel that. Like I've been
You
feeling like
know,
a lot
so
of people are gonna go.
yeah,
Feel that too. Yeah. Like it feels true.
yeah, right, right.
A lot of people are gonna.
Yeah, I've felt that and I've gotten very angry at people that don't want to pay attention to anything that's happening, and it's like they can't avoid what's happening. You
Exactly.
can't escape from
Exactly.
it. We're all part of it. So let's go back to Kendrick Lamar. I
Mhm.
watched a couple less than 2 weeks ago on the Scientific and Medical Network, which comes out of London, which has, like
Mhm.
incredible talks. And this was a talk with a mystic quantum physicist, philosopher type, an older man, hard to understand him because he was talking so softly, so that when I listened to it later, I put the captions on because I found out on on his YouTube thing,
Mhm.
they had it posted
Mhm.
and I could watch it and also send it out to people because he's talking about we have to unite on a biological level,
Mhm.
humanity, on a quantum physics level, on a mystical level, everything, we have to unite to
Mhm.
make this shift. And okay, so let's go back to Kendrick Lamar. He united more people than some of these mystics and spiritual teachers can come near doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
That's
you
why
do
it's so fascinating
know.
watching it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
all ages were relating to it. Like little kids are dancing it.
Yes,
Like
yes, little
everybody's
kids.
dancing it.
I saw one with some people in a elderly person's home with one with a walker, another in a wheelchair, and a guy leading it, doing the step, and they were coming along. I mean, everybody getting into this because it's such a catchy tune, and there's something happening. So it's like, go back to we have to be really open that transformation is coming in very unusual ways. Shoot down the butterfly. That's not the only image of everything looking nicey nice up in the air with our spiritual visions. The butterfly is great, but it comes after the transformation that the caterpillar goes through. Remember, I talked about that before. And the caterpillar eats its way through life, digesting all it can, mindlessly, representing a lot of human beings, right? Then it creates the cocoon, goes inside, and dissolves into goo and totally dissolves. That's a major metaphor for rebirth. Okay, more than the butterfly. The butterfly is the end result.
Mhm.
But it's the big piece is when that caterpillar has been following its guidance, its instinct to build this cocoon and then to allow itself to dissolve. And inside of that liquid are something that scientists called imaginal discs. And in those discs are the blueprint of what will come forth and be embodied in the butterfly.
Mhm. Yes, like
From
the vision you
six
were saying,
organs,
like that's the
eyes.
vision part. You were saying
Yeah,
this or like the vision. So as we're like in the goo right now, everybody's gonna start just kind of getting smushy then it's like, what's the vision for the new world? Is those are the
It doesn't come out of our mind. It comes out of something deeper that starts to form.
Mm. Like within
Okay.
the being, like within the body structure of the.
Something within us, let's say on a psychic level, we have imaginal discs,
Mhm.
something that starts to come forth.
Yeah, that's deep. I feel like I'm still understanding that.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
significant.
Yes.
I suppose one would say that that's synchronistic too, because I had the dream about the guy shooting the butterfly,
Mhm.
and then within a couple of months or something, I somehow get this idea of this caterpillar thing, and then do a little research and find out about the caterpillar turning to goo and the imaginal discs within it, and then see how it all fits together.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like God is giving us like step by step. Exactly. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
this is the
Hmm.
next step and this is the next step. And I think that's the only thing that's keeping me sane right now is like I have such a trust in God that I'm like, even though there's complete chaos and everything is on fire and we have no idea what's going to happen, I trust there's something that's guiding me. Like
Hmm.
I'm 100% certain on that. Nothing else, you could say.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, and the vision. So it's like so unity, vision. He did it through music. And remember I was reading last week just randomly that Woodstock was the last time there was like this gathering of all these people, right? And obviously
Right.
they turned it and made it into this bad thing they called it, but that was the last time we had humanity kind of come together in a big
There was also a great gathering in Monterey, but I was at Altamont, and
Mhm.
Altamont was the end of it all. Altamont was where the Hells Angels were guarding the stage as Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones were singing, and I saw the whole thing, the body coming up in the air, and somebody got murdered, and next thing you know, there's a helicopter rushing out, saving the Rolling Stones and whoever else was there.
Mhm.
And that was the ending of that whole peace and brotherhood stuff.
So they killed someone to kind of make it seem like it was so bad that like people shouldn't do
So
that
they,
again.
yeah, I don't know. They felt they were guarding the stage, and you had all these people on LSD that had no sense of boundaries.
Yeah.
And so, or how people can act when there's somebody elated on that they're drawn to on stage and they lose all sense of mental control and go wild by the star. And so there's just so many different things that came into that. But the Hells Angel did their guarding of the stage and they killed the guy.
Oh, wow.
And that was the ending. So Woodstock was the best, but
Hmm.
also Monterey was really special.
Mm.
And that was, I believe, after Woodstock.
Oh, okay.
Uh, I could be wrong. It could be reverse.
Yeah.
But then Altamont was kind of the real evidence of the ending.
And that was like in the that was in the 60s, like late 60s, right? Like mid
Yeah,
60s.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And since then we haven't really had anything like that. Like kids these days go to festivals and stuff, but they're just like basically
They're
having fun
drugged
with us.
out
There's
without
no
any sense.
spirituality.
Right,
Exactly.
they're drugged out without any sense of any spiritual meaning in it all. Just getting dazed and most of them probably are still checking their phones while they're in the middle of the
Yeah.
concert, because is what people do now. But then again, we go to Kendrick Lamar,
Hmm.
something very different. So I've paid a lot of attention to that as a real positive symbol,
Hmm.
an
Exactly.
immense positive symbol.
And during the world like a big event, right? Like the football event, which
Oh
everybody.
my God, yeah,
And
yeah.
for them to even allow that to occur, like I'm surprised the
It's
powers that be
amazing,
even
isn't it?
let that. Like I was like, how
Right.
did that get through the thing? I was like,
And
that,
the brilliancy and how they'd created everything, the game of life with these symbols and the whole bit, and they've got the step lights flashing, going down in the numbers, and how that's all going to play, and then it starts. And he says in the very beginning when he's sitting on the car, something about the revolution beginning. They picked the right time, but the wrong guy.
ooh, I just got chills.
That's
Yeah.
at the very beginning.
Wow. Because they picked the
There's
right
a
time.
lot there.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. Like it does give me hope. Like when I saw that, I was like, okay, we can make a difference. It's gonna be and it's gonna be like this, like these surprising things. So
Yeah, unusual.
unusual.
Yeah.
Exactly.
unusual and unexpected in some ways, even though it was well planned. Every
Yeah.
phase of it was well planned. But yet at the same time, it's not the thing that the average people, nor the average spiritual friends. I posted on something on Facebook about, raving about all this. Not one like or remark, they
Oh
just
my God.
they
Yeah.
don't get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get you. I get you because I'm obsessed with that song and I always play it, like I've been playing it for
Uh,
like a year and I'm like, yes, 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 we're moving in the right direction. Because he t even talks about the symbol of the owl and you know how one of the demons that likes child sacrifice is like an owl-headed demon and all the evil politicians go to that place, like Grove, sudden something Grove it's called, and it's like a giant owl that they bow to. So in his music video, he even has that owl, which, obviously it's a dark owl, not a light owl. But so,
yeah,
yeah, it's kind of like makes me feel like God is doing something through us. And then I love
right.
that you're by volcanoes, by the way, because to me, the goddess's energy always feels like a volcano. Like you said, like everybody's like, oh, she's so nice. I'm like, it's only because she's sleeping. Like,
What happens if she wakes up?
exactly, exactly. And I feel her like rumbling, And remember in that movie Moana, it was the same thing. Like the goddess kind of
Oh, so
was
good. Yeah.
asleep, and then the little kid goes and returns her heart, puts the little green thing, and then she
Mhm.
suddenly wakes up and
Right,
but she was
right.
a volcano, like an angry volcano when people weren't taking care of her, obviously, So
Yeah.
that's
I'm
the
a little concerned of what's going to happen with this new Snow White that goes back to I hope they don't keep with the beautiful maiden and all the good feelings and with her being awakened by the kissing of a prince. Whereas Maleficent, the
Mhm.
redo of that whole story was
Mhm.
very powerful, Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah. Oh, I love Maleficent.
And it was very, very powerful, both the first one and the second one. The second one, when Maleficent rises out of the flame, the phoenix.
I get chills every time I think about that. When they kill her
Uh,
daughter, like they go to kill her daughter, and then Maleficent like just takes the arrow, and the evil queen is like, "Oh, she's dead," and I'm like, "Not really. This is a fairy queen we're talking about, an ancient."
right, right, right. So,
So, yeah.
all these metaphors that come out, to me, they're things that give a lot of hope because they're coming out of the collective unconscious, which goes back to Jung in the beginning and his whole understanding of synchronicity and how it works.
Mhm.
All of these links. And nowadays the collective unconscious, we don't sit around fires anymore with fairy tales and stuff like that. But we sit in front of a TV and there's some really good stuff that's coming.
Mhm.
If people choose wisely or synchronistically are led
Mhm.
to what can really bring value,
Yeah. Yeah.
guidance, guidance.
I definitely feel like God guides me to Netflix. Like I'll be scrolling and I just get a random movie pop up and I feel like God wants me to watch it. I watch it. The next day I have that exact thing happen to me. And so now I never just watch things randomly exactly. Like I just go there and I see what I'm drawn to. Even if it's like a random thing, I just watch it. And I used to call it Google
Hmm.
God too.
It's
Like I
like,
would on Google and I would just randomly an article would pop up. So I really believe in it.
that's cool.
Could you you
Synchronicity
want
is one way that connects us
to?
in this realm to another one to
Hmm.
verify that we have received something from a non-local place.
Hmm. Exactly. Because otherwise I get confused, I'm like, is that my mind? Is that my guides? Is that just me wishful thinking? So I'm trying to be very clear, so that the synchronicity is, like I'm following the right ones and not, and sometimes I feel like false guidance, like false guides will come and do synchronicity. So I'm even aware of that now. So like I'll get something at 11:11 and I know it was something dark that sent that was messing with me. So I'm starting to kind of feel the energy of when the messages come through,
Mhm.
because I think they know. So
Mhm.
yeah. Do you feel comfortable now talking a little bit about like the collective like father wound, mother wound, like that we all kind of are healing right now? Or do you feel like there's more to
Well,
talk?
I think, like that first dream and the third dream. The first dream was about the feather,
Hmm.
and interesting in the gift.
Hmm.
That Turkish Netflix thing that's so strong, 24 episodes, really worth seeing. Yeah, a couple of murders occur, but this is life, keep on hanging there. And in episode 2, she hears a scratching, clawing kind of thing, and she goes in a room and there's a coffin and she opens it and it's her. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm not going to watch this show. It looks like it might be some kind of a horror thing. Nope. Luckily enough, I hung in there. As a metaphor, we're in coffins, many of us anyway, trying to scratch our way out into life, into some kind of truth. Everything that happens in that is like so profound, so deep, and people just got to hang in there. And again, going to the synchronicity, we go back to those dreams that I had and the feather. In the gift, 2 feathers fall. And I think it's in season 2, a feather falls from the air on a girl that's following the negative way. And then in the very last episode, when a TA goes in looking where her daughter was, and it's kind of like a place that's been used for ritual and candles lit, but not so good by the people that were doing that. And down comes a feather. And a TA, just never are words ever spoken in either one of those episodes. But a TA takes the feather in her hand and goes out. And it's going to be about the judging of the world in the final episode and whether or not we make it.
Yeah.
It's really, really powerful.
Wow.
And so again, synchronicity coming from a program that also goes back to my dream of the feather.
Hmm.
A TA, the star in the gift, has to deal with some significant mother stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
Her mother has to deal with some significant mother stuff.
Hmm.
And in my dream, I'm dealing with very unconscious, that's your underworld, significant stuff. When a TA is in goes in that cave and the rock slide occurs and she's in the underground places associated with Gobekli Tepe, and the goddess appears to her and she tells her you can't go deeper and you can't do this with your mind alone. You've got to follow something deeper from within the heart, the intuition. Those are my words, but what she says is you can't do it with the mind alone. And then later on, and she goes down some spidery thing, kind of steps, ladder down another level deeper. That's all very metaphoric. And in fact, some of Jung's teachings come from an original journey a dream that he had of going deeper downstairs, down ladders, down everything till he came to the bottom floor. And that's where he got all of his ideas for the collective unconscious and then began really verifying it with myths and fairy tales and all of that. So this going deeper. So at one point, a TA's in a very deep place, and then of course she's not getting proper water or anything. She's locked in a cave and wandering around, but it's representative of the underworld. And so she sees her mother, and she sees herself as an infant, and she sees her mother just kind of like checked out and not really paying attention. And she experiences that as a baby, she's just like looking around, but she's not able to make that connection with her mother. And later, her mother will share how she wasn't able to make that connection and why. And a lot of that had to do with her connection with her own mother. So then we get back into this family constellations thing and the ancestor generational healing and how important it is for men. I think with fathers, yeah, they've got their mother stuff too. Women also have their father stuff. But a lot of times the shadow is more in the same gender.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jung said that. Jung said that.
And it makes sense because yeah, I've always noticed with men, like if they don't like their dad, like they have so much difficulty with so many different things, you know? And then I see with women, if they don't like their mom, then they don't like me. And like I see it with clients, like if they really don't like their mom, I'll notice they'll have the
Right.
same feeling towards
They
me.
can't go with me. Right. I
Right.
learned that very young too, that because my mother had tried to destroy me having any power or sense of anything about myself, and I had to work through all of that. So then I find when there's some women that they just can't accept me. And I know I haven't done anything wrong. And I feel pretty clear about where my heart is and why I do and what I do and that kind of stuff. And then I came to understand, this is a few decades ago, women that don't know their own power,
Mm-hmm.
they get triggered by me.
Yeah, it's like you're
And
powerful, but
and
then
there's
they can't
not
understand it.
and they feel that depth of what I've gone through and
Yes.
still have more to go through in this whole journey in the underworld. And so it triggers what they don't want to deal with. And so then they project it on me. And that's, I think, something similar with you. And this whole thing is when we start, and this is all in that episode 5 of season 1. It's worth watching. I may have watched it 6 times because it just kept validating my beliefs that she's going to know her power in that episode because she's going to work through all her fears and work through all of her judgments that are at the deepest level.
Just and episode 5, and that thing that you
Episode
had
5, season
five
1.
oh
But you
five.
need the rest
Mm-hmm.
to build to understanding that,
Yes.
those first 4 episodes, and then to see what's going to happen right down to what happens with her daughter in episode 24.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
And
the
her
mother.
male partner, and her male partner.
Mm.
How that's going to all come together. Very alchemical.
Oh wow. And it's
Yeah.
on Netflix, just regular Netflix, right? And it's called The
It's
Gift.
Netflix, right? And you just look at the gift, and it's the one from Turkey.
Okay, perfect. And Turkey
Yeah.
is where all the goddesses are at. That's where you're taking people soon to see.
That's what, right. We're going to go to all those sites because, there was no markation boundaries between Turkey and Greece at that time. That was all just, people just traveled around and did all that. So I'm also going to go into the mainland Greece after they leave.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to go into both. I'm going early before I'm going to go Göbekli Tepe myself. I'm
Mhm.
going by myself, which is pretty gutsy, but didn't have anybody to go with, and I'm not going to miss out because it's only like less than 30 miles from the Syrian border.
Oh, yes, you have to go. You have to go.
Yeah, I'm not about to miss out on that. I've already got my flight and my hotel,
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I'll just hire a private guide to take me up there and show me
I,
around and go in the museum, plus sleep in that, in that area the whole bit,
oh,
or fun.
I wonder
And
what kind of dreams you're gonna have there, Dr. Sharon.
yeah, yeah, it's going to be really good.
Yes. Yes. And then like with men, like their fathers, right? And then like the whole concept of God this whole time has been masculine only, right? So I've noticed with men, if they don't get along with their dad, then they don't really believe in God sometimes, or they go the opposite and become
Well, or
stronger.
sometimes, or they misuse it in some way, or really like the patriarchal power thing. But what I've noticed with men through the decades is that guys that have a real hard time not following the modeling by their dads, even if they want something else. And I've wondered about what the difference is that women don't necessarily do that. They may have their problems with their mother, and it may set off problems with them with their daughters and all that kind of stuff, but they don't have the exact same thing of following a pattern. Like if my dad was an alcoholic, I'm going to be an alcoholic, or that kind of stuff. And I think with women, it's because we are more centered in our bodies because of our periods that started at a young age, and we have more of a grounded affiliation with our bodies than
Mhm.
guys do.
You're right. Yeah, because
Mm.
women don't always turn out like their moms, but men usually turn a lot like their dads, like more common.
Mhm.
Exactly. You're right.
Modeling is just really significant.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, so women kind of like we go inward and we kind of maybe don't, if we see something in our mothers we don't like, we kind of try not to do that or try to like. But with
Mhm.
men, you're right. It's like they need a leader. And even if you see little boys like in the school, they always want to follow like the bigger boys, right? Like I
Mhm.
worked in elementary, middle school. They don't
Mhm.
listen as much to the girl teachers. They want to just listen to the boy teachers. And it's like inherent, like follow the male thing. So yeah. Yeah. So what do you feel like from your experience, what is the best way for men to heal that with their dads and then for women to heal that like with their mothers? Like,
It's what Jung said. It's the deep shadow work. We've got to really, really learn how to be aware of where our feelings and our thoughts come from within.
hmm hmm
and not let them dominate us, but let them teach us. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the work in the underworld.
Mm-hmm. So if
You
like
know,
so if you notice something you have that's a thinking pattern like your mom and you don't necessarily agree with it, you have to be like, okay, that's not me. Well, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm going to choose what I believe is right.
or to do shadow work is where is it in me?
Mm,
Okay.
mm,
I
like,
had some really good experience a couple of weeks ago. I was with a homeopathist I was seeing here, and for the second time in a row, he'd been really scattered all over the place. And I was processing it and his inability to be present and thinking, yeah, I may be done with that guy. And then I can I trust him, for making the right prescriptions for homeopathy if he's like so scattered? And then I thought, he's reflecting, he's a mirror of that part of me. And I saw that part of me that
mm-hmm.
can be distracted and all over the place. And
Yeah.
so that he was mirroring that as a step I needed to go look at deeper. So when we could do that, then we're really starting to do the shadow work.
Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I'm noticing something
Where
here.
is it in me?
Yes. Like, how is this part of me that I need to look at? Exactly.
Right. That's what Jung was saying.
Look at people as a mirror. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he does talk about like if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will lead your life and you'll call it fate or something like that, right?
Hmm.
Kind of keep doing that. And yeah, but it's for me, like personally, I feel like, like my mom and I, like I've been working on it for years, and I've coming to a place where I'm starting to like accept her, but we're just very different. We're very different people. She's fully clinical, I'm fully spiritual. So I kind of like see her more like a sister now. And I'm just kind of like, because
That's
when I
good.
was looking at her as a mother, it was like hurting me because she couldn't like validate the things. But when I look at her as a sister, it's kind of more like she's my sister. She believes this, I believe this, and it's okay. And then like I'm not gonna ask her for certain things because I know she doesn't want to do that or that's not her path. And it would just disappoint me when I would ask. So it's kind of like been like I would say self-parenting and then taking her out of the mother role and putting her in a sister role was really helpful for me because
Hmm.
I don't know why. And then but the Divine Mother kind of became my mother. So I feel like the Divine Mother of the universe is my mother, and then I'll see her show up in women to help me all the time.
Hmm.
Even this last 7 months with everything in the hospitals, like I'll see her in nurses and doctors and in my teachers. I can feel it's the Divine Mother's presence.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah.
And you've made some good steps with your mother because you've taken some projections away
Mhm.
and accepting her as she is and you as you are. That's a big step. Sadly, my mother died and we never were able to resolve any kind of thing, so I'm having to do it all within myself.
Yes.
And it is, I think, really good when you can do it in vivo with the person.
Yeah, but that's amazing that you're doing it, that you're able to do that even though she's passed, that you're still able to do that. And I love that I love that you go deep into yourself, even though you're a professor, you've written all these things, you're still like, I'm still on the path. And that's good for all of us to stay humble. Like sometimes I see people and they're like, oh, I've already healed that fully. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think any of
Uh,
us, you know.
Our whole life is this healing process, and look where the world is right now. Everybody really needs to go deeper. They really need to look within themselves and at the same time realize our need to connect with all others.
Mhm. Totally. Totally. Yeah. And I think as the whole world has these wounds, right? Like the whole wound,
Yeah,
everybody has these wounds. And really it's because the goddess hasn't been present for so many years, right? It's kind of like the goddess energies have been kind of hidden for so many years, like really since the church kind of went to Rome and burned all the Hathor temples, right? And they kind of just threw Mary Magdalene in the garbage and they kind of just said women aren't basically as spiritual as men when we know women are actually the gateway to spirituality.
yeah.
So
There were
yeah.
the way the Bible was put together, which they were making choices of all these various, let's say, all the various myths and legends and stories, and you choose which ones you're going to put together to be the book that we put the stamp upon as the Word of God.
Mm,
And the story of Adam and Eve, even they differ I hear there's two books of Genesis. I've never studied it, but there's two different books of Genesis with different versions. And even in the Quran, which uses, because it sees itself as an extension of Judaism and Christianity, and that Muhammad was just expanding the message, and they saw Jesus as another prophet. But the story of Adam and Eve differ in as much as they're two sides of one being.
mhm.
In
Two sides of one
Sufism,
vein.
yeah, in Sufism, it's the archetypal human,
Mhm,
with the masculine and the feminine side, and that goes more particularly into the Sufic understanding. But going back to ancient Hebrew teachings, and I came across there's a book called The Other Bible.
mhm,
And it's a collection of old stories, ancient stories, and there's one called the Haggadah,
mhm,
Haggadah. And I want to look it up because it's been coming to me a lot, and I did make sure I brought that book with me when I was filling the car. And it's got a very different version than the Adam and Eve one. It's like when God was fashioning this human being,
mhm,
Adam,
mhm,
the archetypal human being, he was looking at all the things that could go wrong if it was like purely masculine.
mhm,
And
mhm.
then he breathed her into him.
Wow.
Yeah, like, whoa, that
Wow.
wasn't the story chosen for the Bible.
Wow. Yeah, instead it was like, oh, she messed the whole thing up. This is all her fault, you know? Instead
Right. And
like,
she's created out of a rib. So
yeah,
that's
she's just like a little
your
rib. She's
an
not
afterthought.
yeah. Like, okay, please, I've never seen like a super stable man that didn't have a stable woman like with him, like most men
Right,
don't reach very high states without like a powerful feminine presence, right? Like whether
right.
it's their mentor, their wife, or their sister, like so feminine plays such a role, and you see that with the awake men, they really recognize that and they're like, wow, they appreciate the goddess, I really can't respect a man unless he has like a goddess image in his house or in his office. Like I'm like, if you haven't reached that level, I don't even know what we're going to talk about, you know? So, and I think so.
I addressed all that in my last book, The Power of the Feminine, and
Mhm,
the subtitle of that's Facing Shadow, Evoking Light. It is more, it came out in 2020,
mhm,
so it was kind of like overshadowed by COVID. But
mhm,
all of the stuff that we're dealing with now with masculine and feminine and the need for what the Trump administration has been abolishing, diversity, equity, and inclusion,
mhm,
some of the highest human values we can have, believing that those are the cause of all problems,
mhm,
cause of everything that's gone wrong.
mhm,
God, we were talking about all that stuff, and that this was the feminine archetype.
mhm,
Women don't necessarily embody the feminine archetype. Some men do.
mhm,
Many women are still following patriarchal
mhm.
influences.
Totally.
Okay. So the feminine archetype, when we look at archetypes as various representations of the divine,
Mhm.
then the feminine can be seen as something for all. It is the
Exactly.
relational archetype. It is what connects. So vital that the goddess is recognized, vital that the feminine is recognized, because it is this unity that will be the transformation
Mhm.
when we can embody it and all join.
Like all people understand that part of themselves, you mean? Like everybody understands.
Embody it, go back to that word you gave, claircognizance. You know you're there.
Like knowing it for sure, like we're here.
Right, right,
Mm.
right.
Yes, yes. Wow. Well, yeah. Do you feel like we're gonna get there? Do you feel
I
like
don't know. I know it's not going to happen in my lifetime.
it's gonna be
I
later?
doubt it.
Might be
But
50.
I'll do all I can do to promote the message. Right.
I also feel the same. Like I feel like there's
Yeah.
a lot
We've
of
got,
darkness ahead, you know. but we do have to have hope. It's kind of
Mhm.
like I'm trying to keep the hope alive because if there's no hope, then it's kind of like it's just darkness. But like what you were saying with the vision, the butterfly as it's in that goo, like having that vision. But I agree with you. It's almost like there's this darkness ahead because unfortunately, darkness is what it takes for people to wake up.
That's your underworld. That's
That's
the
the thing,
underworld.
right? Like I wish I could just tell everybody unite and be good, and we have been saying it. You could say the Beatles sung it, all these people, but people don't get it. But if there is like a hellstorm on the planet, then I think they're gonna get it. And I
Mhm.
think that's why the goddess allowed it. Even when the fires were burning in LA, I could see Kali there. Like I could see her burning it. And she told me, she's like, a lot of these homes are homes of pedophiles. Like I want the truth to come out. She said that's why I'm allowing it. And I was like, okay, okay. And it turned out to be true. Like a lot of like P. Diddy and all these people, like a lot of the homes and the tunnels are gonna kind of be coming to light now. So I think it's going to be some kind of a fire burning metaphorically, but also literally, she's going to kind of like set the world on fire, to make sure everybody kind of gets it. And I think that's her being loving, you know, because otherwise, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to go into AI and kind of like, you know what I mean? Like the evil
I'm
come
headed
back,
toward
that's
this
very bad.
feelingless place when our feelings are our saving grace, when we can connect through feelings.
Exactly. Like the heart, the feather, like you said, like the whole world is going to be judged by that feather. Is your heart
How the
pure?
heart weighs, right? How pure is that heart? That's an ancient metaphor from ancient Egypt about weighing that heart against the feather.
Mhm.
And it's feeling, and AI threatens feeling.
Mm,
Okay.
mhm.
It's all about a logical kind of thing, and it's not even coming from us. It's being taken outside where everybody's gonna kind of controlled by it with less and less need for human creativity.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's very important that we start really realizing the importance of our feelings, our feeling nature. And I
Hmm.
don't mean some, off the wall emotional acting out. I mean our deeper feelings and knowing through those feelings.
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Ooh, we've got a lot coming up.
Yeah. It's another good talk.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Anything else you wanted to share?
No, I think I've said a lot and you've said a lot, and I think it's enough for our listeners and viewers to take in and start to let it cook inside of them.
Yes, yes. I love that. And thank you so much for sharing that. Your stories are so interesting and so intriguing. I have to go and watch this interview again just to like absorb it again because whenever I talk with you, I'm just absorbed in it. So I have to always watch it after to get the deeper message. And so grateful for you. And I'm excited for you to come back again in a couple of months after you come back from Turkey, hopefully. And
Oh my
love,
gosh, it's gonna
love
Turkey and Greece
Turkey
and Jordan.
and
Short
Jordan.
time in Jordan, short time in Jordan.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I
Yeah.
definitely want to hear all about the goddesses over there. So,
Yes, it's going to be really wonderful.
yes,
And
thank
then
you
we
so
also really have a big focus in the Minoan culture, which was a very gender balanced culture.
Okay, very cool. Well, that'll be like good to talk about too, because right now that's definitely not happening for humanity. It's like
Well,
either,
they're trying to even destroy it more than ever.
oh
I
yeah,
mean, really, if some of those far right Republicans had their way, the Stepford wives would be the model.
oh
No,
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, that's what they like. Women should just be
yeah,
silent
right.
and not speak much, just be whatever. So,
Right. I'm going to watch The Stepford Wives again. There was a version that came out with Michelle or Nicole Kidman a few years ago. And I'm
oh,
going to watch it again because I know that the stuff in that is like really significant for where the US is trying to promote the status of women.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm gonna watch it too. I'm gonna watch it too. Thank you so much, Dr.
My
Sharon. So
pleasure.
grateful to you. So grateful.
Goodbye and bye to all your viewers.